like entertainment. What am I going to turn on YouTube today? Which conspiracy speaker is going to entertain me today? And I think that's a problem that we've got with it as well.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's been on my mind for years now. Not only that, it is going to get worse. The media, the mainstream media, is already nibbling at the content of people like myself and other greats within the world. Not that I'm great, but I'm saying the greats that I admire. Those people working within the alternative movement, they're already having their work co-opted by PBS, by Discovery, by History Channel, and many other orgs. They're just waiting. They're waiting yet because they don't know what to do with it. But what's happening is their own spiel, their own gobbledygook is running out of steam. So they know where it's fringe. They know, they always keep their eyes on that particular controversial area, and they're not short. They've already done it with Jesse Ventura. And now everybody wants to be Alex Jones. They're going to borrow from Alex. They're going to take, he's led the way, and they're going to pick up this stuff, and they're going to try and make a lot of it as mainstream as they can. And what they're going to do is then put some little presenter on there who's very, media friendly, and they will try to run with it. You have the Glenn Becks dipping into it. You even have O'Reilly dipping into it if you watch carefully enough. And we're just on the twilight zone. They damn well know what people want and where the facts are, and that these facts are going to blow people out of the water. I've even suggested on my forum that these discoveries about the sun particle may in fact have been leaked on purpose, because there are so many refutations to carbon dating now. And I'm not talking about the refutations that come from these freaky evangelist Christians. Let's completely ignore that. I'm talking about mainstream scientists deeply looking into this stuff, and they can't afford another Ellen Dallaire, right? The top brass from Oxford, Cambridge, wherever it might be, coming out with a book that refutes these lies. They can't have that. So maybe they've leaked this on purpose to say, well, yeah, we officially accept, so that no spurious person, you see, can come along and blow them out of the water, or even one of their own guys can do it. They play these games. But coming to the point you mentioned about books, I have to tell you, see, that I couldn't agree more. I love the new medium, and I work with it, and I'm saying, okay, you've got to work with the tools at hand, as Arthur Conan Doyle suggested that you do. You just make use of the tools that are at hand. But to me, a book and a man writing down his thoughts, leaving that to posterity, it's not only the content within the book, it is the beauty of the fact that he can do that, the language, the writing. I was living in Ireland when I was a child, and across the road, there's 3 Victorian ladies had been living for, hundreds of years. These ladies were in their 80s. Their family had lived in this Victorian house in North Belfast, and after they died, in come the paddies and wreck the place, and they're chucking, like these beautiful stained glass windows. They're chucking the wardrobes, the bookshelves, and the books out the window into the street, into the skip. And I'm like, 13. I go over there, and there's Bibles, beautifully, and in every book, when you open the first page, there it is in beautiful Victorian calligraphy. These women, and who had ever given their books, passed down in Ireland, from one family member to the next. Precious things. And since I'm just giving you one example there, to me, I'd never have forgotten the fact that in the Victorian era, or even previous to that, and you only have to watch a Brian Friel, play, or a John Milsing play, or any, plays by the great playwrights, Ireland and other places, to know this fact that when a man was given a book, that was probably the greatest gift that his hands were trembling. When a man, an ignorant man, an uncle or a grandfather, or it just happened that they passed down a book, a John Ruskin book, or a book on politics or whatever. The very fact that an heirloom was handed down and it was a book, that was the most precious thing that you possessed, because it had knowledge in it. Nobody took it for granted in those ancient days like we do today. Today we're living in a spinner rack world.
Exactly.
Whether those books are good or bad is another, argument, but the very fact is that we don't even think about the preciousness that's worth its weight in gold. Did you know that the scholar, people talk about Plato, we were talking about philosophy earlier on. Did you know that the Platos and Aristotles and all the rest of them, Democritus, and I don't know, the whole library of the Athenian philosophers wouldn't even been known in the West. We know that the original scripts were kept alive by the Moors. These are the Arabs in Spain. I'm not talking about that. But I'm talking about since that period of time, from the Moorish invasions of Spain, in order to get all those Platonic and Aristotelian works, which are the basis of Greek and Roman culture, and they're the bedrock of all Western culture.
Yeah.
The man who translated those was one man. His name was Thomas Taylor. Did you know that he sat in freezing cold poverty in England, and his hands actually, by the time he was finished translating all the works of Aristotle and Plato, his hands had frozen into the shape of a pen, a grip.
Yeah.
I'm
disgusted that I've never even heard that name before, Michael, to be honest. Could you give me it again, please?
His name is Thomas Taylor.
Yeah.
Thomas Taylor. He's a man who should be revered throughout the known world.
Every single philosophy student, every single philosophy professor in every modern university of the Western world has the works of Taylor on their shelves. That's the ones that they refer to, whether you're Barnes or you're Copplestone or you're all the top dons that have ever existed from the time of the opening of the first universities, or not the first university, but the main Oxfords and Cambridges. This is the definitive works that all the other translators have either adapted or gone to originally. To me, those are altars.
That's it.
I don't forget about the sacrifice of men like that. I don't forget the sacrifice of even Douglas Adams, who wrote one book in conditions like that. Douglas Reed, I mean. So, you're dealing with people who've done this on an individual scale, and you've done it with the super geniuses whose translations literally founded the knowledge that we have today. Can you imagine? There's that scene in Red Dwarf where he's, because he's shivering in the cold and he's going to die of malnutrition, he's burning the Shakespeare books, and there's this incredible, hilarious dialogue about, to keep your mitts warm, you'd burn, the collected works of William Shakespeare. And they have this whole, jocular scene about that, and it's very bloody true, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's no secret that the libraries of major universities have started burning entire sections, which makes you wonder what they're going to be replaced with.
That's right. They'll edit a Starsky and Hutch because it's not friendly now to the gormless 7 o'clock audience. Right? They'll edit and take out a drug scene or a sex scene in a bloody rerun that's about 100 years old because it isn't pertinent to the gormless East Ender crowd watching morons, right, of Britain or America. What do you think they must be doing with the classics, for God's sake?
That's it.
Yeah.
Completely.
Horrifying, isn't it?
Well, they'll use Mozart's dying music, the music of his greatest life's passion, to sell a Volkswagen or digestive biscuits, right? You'll have some symphonic thing, which is the man's greatest spiritual cry to the Almighty Creator, selling a blinking brazier, all right? That's the world we're living in.
It's a terrible situation.
Progress.
After the break, what we can do, just slightly going back on what we've just been mentioning before we play a song, talking about sort of people being led down a path, certain things, accusations of Luciferian stuff, satanic stuff, Theosophical Society. I think we should probably clear some of that up after the break.
Right.
If you want to go into that. You've just been listening to Damien Dempsey, Colony, beautiful, beautiful track. I love it. We can probably touch on the Irish origins of civilization in a bit, but before the break, we were talking about, we touched on propaganda and false information that's floating around in this so-called movement as well as our history. Something that bugs me quite a lot is, you could call it the Christian perspective, which, as much as I've got nothing against Christianity at all, even though obviously if only the people who follow that religion would understand that they're following an occult religion at the same time. So they tend to accuse a lot of people of being Luciferian, satanic, or devil worshippers, and sort of mixing things up instead of talking about magic or sorcery. And one of those areas is the Theosophical Society and Madame Blavatsky. So I know you've mentioned this before, Michael. What's your take on this situation?
Well, I think they're largely right. The point, first thing is most of my mentors were Christian authors. Mm-hmm. I've listed them many, many times. And to all intents and purposes, if you take away the fanaticism and some just crazy research, they're not altogether wrong. Because basically, there's only a few people like myself are only trying to make a few basic points. The broadest point to make is that evil was on this planet long before Jesus was ever heard of or Christians were ever heard of. So Christians need to sit down one day and light a candle to all those occultists, those white magicians.
Yeah.
That, look, if Professor Tolkien could salute them in his work, which he's basically doing, if Professor C.S. Lewis could do it, and these are giants in the Christian world, and many others I could mention have done it, what then is the churchgoer got a problem? Accept it. Evil is not dating from, 0 AD. Sorry, it's not. It's been on this planet from the time of Atlantis. The ancient legends will tell you all about it. So whether you like it or not, it was pre-Christians who were fighting the good fight. So the broader point is, you have one important tent, a very important arsenal in the fight against universal evil. Stop bickering, fighting, and having pillow fights with the other encampments, because that is exactly what universal evil thrives on. If you haven't got that understood by now, then there's no helping you. And what you'll do is that's why universal evil is flourishing, because all they want you to do is be clubbing each other over the head, where you should actually be all facing the main enemy. That's the first point. And the second one is that it's semantics. The Christian has to understand, as you said, that there is endless references of paganism. That's what my book Astro-Theology goes into. That's what my Astro-Theology website goes into. The pagan elements. Lots of oak trees, lots of fig trees, lots of terebinth trees, lots of goddesses, lots of wells in the Bible, right? Lots of mounts of olives and all the rest of it. Lots of references to the stars and the sun and crowns of thorns and all the rest of it. Where does that all come from? And then again, coming more to the point, find out, what does the word Lucifer mean? Is it the same thing as Satan? No, it's not. And even when it was considered the same, you have umpteen different groups that were proto-Christian. Ebionites, Galileans, Nazarenes, Mandaeans, even the Stoics, the proto-Stoics. A lot of traditions come along, even in the official, the strictly Judaic. All of these traditions, including many Gnostic ones that Christians would rather not know about, and if you go into them, then you're into many dozens of cults and groups.
Absolutely.
Excuse me, just wanted a sip of the coffee there. But once you amalgamize all of them together, you have to also realize that all of these groups had a different slant on what it meant to be what Satan was and what the tempter was. So that means research. So biblical scholars know the languages of the ancient world. The average Christian in the street doesn't. He doesn't know the difference. He doesn't even know that the word Lucifer once upon a time applied to a planet. And there's a cosmology tie-in. My God, that opens a lot of doors. Why did Satan fall from heaven? Have they ever even asked the question of what that's all about? Why did he not fall when he fell with 200? Why not 2,000? What's the difference? How does Abraham notice that these men who've come to his door are angels? Yeah, we got questions here, and it's not the right of Christians to, like dogs with a territory, pissing on it and saying, that's only mine. Every thinking human being can approach any archive of knowledge to discover what the secrets and the truths are there, to decode the names, to find out what these terms mean. Why do the Theosophical Society, which I do believe became undermined and became a sinister organization? I have no problem with that. They were co-opted. Or let's just say more correctly that their entire membership was made up of Fabians. And Fabians have a political agenda. Madame Blavatsky did not. That's a very important point. So stop throwing muck at the person whose works are filled with the fact that when you're doing the holy work, it has got nothing to do with politics, which is absolutely evil. It's based on imperialism, ancient imperialism. And if you want to know who the founder of imperialism was, just read Deuteronomy, read Exodus, and read Genesis, and it's Lord Yahweh himself. Abraham, I got a plan. Come over here and wipe out all of these people. And then when you discover that these umpteen different tribes that lived in the land of Canaan and Palestine, when Yahweh was saying, okay, we're going to butcher these guys, if you actually read deeply, you'll find out that they were actually connected to Abraham's family. They weren't foreigners or strangers. They're from a matrilinear point of view. They were linked to as the Bible would say, see the Noahs and the Seths and the Ishmaels and the Cain and Abels. these same descendants are the same descendants from which the matrilinear side of Abraham comes. So he's going out there and slaughtering his own people to build a covenant with Yahweh. That's imperialism. There's Jehovah. Tell me, you're talking to me about Lucifer's? I can take you right to his doorstep.